Zhuangzi was an ancient Chinese philosopher, often remembered as the playful and imaginative voice of Taoism. Where Lao Tzu spoke in short, poetic verses, Zhuangzi chose stories. His tales could be light, humorous, even absurd at times, but hidden inside them was a deep wisdom about how to live. In his book, also called Zhuangzi, he shows us that much of our suffering comes from holding on too tightly, to rigid ideas of right and wrong, to our need for control, to the seriousness with which we approach everything. His message is clear. True freedom comes from letting go of labels, of narrow thinking, of the constant urge to prove ourselves. He invites us to live more lightly, to drift through life like a leaf on a stream. And when we do, we find a quieter, deeper kind of joy. But in today's world, we're pushed to move faster, to compete harder, to constantly chase the next goal. And in that race, it's easy to forget the simple lightness of being alive. Zhuangzi reminds us that life doesn't always have to be a struggle. It can be playful. It can be free. So in this video, we're going to look at 7 lessons from Zhuangzi. They're gentle reminders to see life a little differently, to put down some of the weight you've been carrying, to laugh at the unexpected turns, and to find a lighter, more playful way of living. Number 1. Don't get trapped by labels. Zhuangzi says, "What is good? What is bad? Opinions differ and the disputes never end. Yet, whether right or wrong, good or bad, the way makes them all into one." Zhuangzi saw labels as cages created by the mind, boundaries that cut up reality into neat little boxes, when in truth, life flows freely without divisions. To Zhuangzi, labeling was like drawing lines in water. The moment you do it, the lines dissolve. Reality itself has no sharp edges. It's only the mind that insists on calling one thing good and another thing bad, one person useful and another useless. The problem is that once we put a label on something, we no longer see it for what it really is. We only see the name we gave it. And this is how much of our suffering is created. Not by life itself, but by the way we think about life. Zhuangzi tells us a story about a crooked tree. A carpenter looks at it and dismisses it immediately. "This tree is worthless. Its wood's too twisted to make furniture." In the eyes of society, the tree is useless. But precisely because of this uselessness, the tree is left standing, free to grow tall, free to offer shade, free to live out its natural life. Meanwhile, the straight trees, the useful ones, are cut down, chopped up and turned into objects. So we can see that Zhuangzi shows us that sometimes what we dismiss as useless or strange may be carrying a hidden gift. The crooked tree survives because it escapes the blade. Its flaw becomes its freedom. Now reflect on your own life. How many times have you labelled yourself or others in ways that closed off possibility? You may have told yourself, "I'm not good enough, I'm unlucky," or "I'm too shy." Or maybe you've looked at someone else and thought, "He's difficult, she's strange, they're useless." But notice what happens once these labels are stamped. Every action, every moment gets filtered through that judgment. And that label becomes a prison, not just for them, but for you as well. Zhuangzi invites us to loosen these chains of the mind. Ask yourself, what am I not seeing because I've already decided what this is? Maybe the boring job you complain about is quietly giving you stability, so your spirit has room to grow elsewhere. Maybe that strange person you avoid carries a perspective that could open your heart in ways you never imagined. So here's the practice. Whenever you catch yourself labeling something, whether it's a person, an event, or even yourself, pause and ask, is this the whole truth? Is there another way to see it? Could what I've called useless actually be carrying a hidden blessing? For example, imagine losing a job you really wanted. Instantly, the mind stamps it failure. But if you breathe, step back, and look again, you may realize this rejection freed you from a path that wasn't truly yours to begin with. It may be pushing you towards something better aligned with your nature. What felt like misfortune could be a disguised teacher. And this is Zhuangzi's lesson. Life isn't meant to be sliced into opposites, and when you stop clinging to labels, you begin to see reality as it really is. Alive, flowing. Number 2, see life as a dream. Zhuangzi once wondered, how do I know that what I call waking is not a dream? How do I know that what I call dreaming is not waking? Zhuangzi once had a dream, and in that dream, he was a butterfly. He wasn't a philosopher or even a man, just a butterfly, flying freely, happy and at ease. Then he woke up, and suddenly he was Zhuangzi again. And this left him wondering, was I, Zhuangzi, dreaming I was a butterfly? Or is a butterfly now dreaming that I am Zhuangzi? What he wanted us to see is that the line between dream and reality isn't so clear. What feels permanent today might turn out to be just as fleeting as last night's dream. Think about it. When we're inside a dream, it feels real. We laugh, cry, or panic, and only when we wake up do we realize it was just a dream. Zhuangzi's story invites us to look at our everyday life in the same way. Maybe it's not as solid as we think. Maybe it's more like a passing dream. This doesn't mean life has no value. In fact, it means the opposite. If life is dreamlike, then we don't need to carry it with such heaviness. We don't need to cling so hard to worries, ambitions, or the roles we play. Just like we don't try to hold on to dreams after we wake, we can learn to let life flow more lightly. Think of how often we treat things as permanent. Our failures, our labels, our problems. We tell ourselves, this is who I am, or this will never change. But Zhuangzi's butterfly reminds us that everything changes and that nothing is fixed forever. When life feels too heavy, try asking yourself, what if this is just a dream? That simple question can make your problems feel lighter. This way, you'll simply move through life like a butterfly, light and free. Number 3, embracing the mystery of not knowing. According to Zhuangzi, a frog in a well cannot talk about the sea because he's confined to his hole. A summer insect cannot talk about ice because it knows only its own season. Zhuangzi lived in a world where philosophers, rulers, and scholars tried to pin life down with neat theories and fixed answers. They believed if they could put existence into words, they'd understand it. But to Zhuangzi, it was like trying to pour the ocean into a cup. You lose the vastness, the mystery, and the depth of what it really is. He often reminded people that truth isn't something solid we can hold in our hands. It shifts. What feels certain today may fall apart tomorrow. What looks clear when you stand in one place may look completely different when you move to another. He once met a man who boasted that he fully understood life and death. Zhuangzi only smiled and asked, how can any of us, with such brief lives and such narrow senses, claim to comprehend something as boundless as existence? For him, Wisdom wasn't about having the right answer. It was about being at peace with not knowing. Life wasn't a puzzle to solve, but a mystery to move through. Like a breeze passing through the trees, it was meant to be experienced, not grasped. So if we stop clinging so tightly to certainty, we no longer need to argue, to prove ourselves, to defend every option. Instead, we begin to flow with events, like travelers walking down a road who take joy in the journey rather than fixating on the destination. This means we loosen our grip. We remain open. Because when we let go of rigid ideas, we make space for wonder, for growth, and for life to surprise us in ways we never imagined. But how do you practice this? Well, start small. The next time you feel unsure of what lies ahead, don't rush to control everything. Just take a breath and tell yourself, I don't know yet, and that's okay. When challenges appear, don't ask, what's the one correct path? Instead ask, what possibilities are open to me right now? Welcome the unknown as part of life's beauty, not as a threat. Zhuangzi teaches us that wisdom isn't about conquering the mystery, it's about dancing with it. So live lightly, curiously, and openly, because that, to him, was the true way to meet life. Number 4. Flow with change. In the words of Zhuangzi, birth is not a beginning, death is not an end. Existence is transformation. Time is a renewal. Zhuangzi saw change not as something to fear, but as the very heartbeat of existence. To him, life was like the endless rhythm of change, the seasons that come and go, the cycle of day and night, the constant dance of growth and decay. Everything changes. It's the way of the Tao. But we humans, we cling to what we love. We want relationships, careers, even our own youth to remain fixed in time. And when life shifts as it inevitably will, we feel pain. Not because change is bad, but because we resist it. When Zhuangzi's wife passed away, his friends came to console him. At first he grieved like any man would, but soon after, they found him singing and gently drumming on a pot. Shocked, they asked, "How can you celebrate after losing your wife?" Zhuangzi explained that at first he too felt sorrow, but then he remembered the larger rhythm of existence. Before she was born, she was part of the endless Tao. Then she entered form, lived her years, and now has returned to the great mystery. Birth, growth, decay, death. These are all part of one unbroken cycle. Why should he cling to it and demand it to be otherwise? So what Zhuangzi teaches here is that change isn't an enemy to fight. It's the river carrying us onward. When we resist, we suffer. When we flow, we find peace. Think about your own life. Maybe you're holding on to the way things used to be. A relationship that ended. A phase of life that has passed. A younger version of yourself you wish you could return to. Notice how that clinging only creates tension. The truth is, life has already moved forward, and your spirit is being invited to move with it. When change shows up in your life, maybe it's small, like a plan falling through, or something big, like the end of a relationship, it's easy to feel resistance. The mind jumps to, why is this happening to me? But Taoism advises us to pause and ask ourselves, what is this making space for? What season of my life might be starting here? Think about it. We must bear the harsh winter, but without it there would be no spring. In the same way, the loss of a job might be the opening to a path that truly fits you. The end of a friendship may be what allows new connections to enter. Even the tough moments carry seeds of renewal, and when you begin to see change this way, you don't have to fight it so hard. You can flow with it. Number 5. Act effortlessly. To quote Zhuangzi, "I enter with the swirl, I emerge with the flow. I follow the way of the water, not my own contrivance. Thus, I survive." Zhuangzi once told a story about a man who jumped into a huge waterfall. The water crashed down with incredible force, and everyone watching was sure he would die. But just a little while later, he appeared downstream, alive and unharmed. When people asked how he survived, the man said, "I don't fight the water. I let it take me down with its whirlpools, and I rise with its currents. I go with the flow instead of resisting." This, Zhuangzi said, is the heart of Wu Wei, the phrase often translated as effortless action. But it doesn't mean laziness or doing nothing. It means moving in harmony with the way life naturally flows, like swimming with the current instead of against it. Zhuangzi noticed that a lot of our suffering comes from resistance. We push, we force, we fight against reality, and we tire ourselves out. The swimmer's secret was simple. The waterfall is stronger than him, so why fight it? By yielding, he let the river's strength carry him. Nature, after all, favors harmony over struggle. A tree that refuses to bend in the wind will break, but a reed that bends will survive. In everyday life, Wu Wei is about noticing where we're fighting battles that don't need to be fought. Maybe it's at work, trying to force ourselves into a career that feels heavy just because it looks successful on the outside. Maybe it's in relationships, trying to control others instead of listening and moving with them. Or maybe it's inside ourselves, straining so hard to become someone different that we forget the ease of simply being who we are. Wu Wei invites us to ask, what would happen if I stopped forcing? What if I trusted the flow instead? Sometimes that means acting, but in a way that feels natural. Other times it means waiting, letting things unfold in their own time. Ironically, living this way often brings the best results. Think of someone trying to force a relationship, messaging constantly, overthinking every silence, pushing for more than the other person is ready for. The more they push, the more tension grows, and the other person pulls away. But when you simply enjoy time with someone, without clinging or pushing, things often deepen naturally. You're not inactive. You're present, attentive, open. But you're not trying to control. And that ease creates space for something real to grow. Number 6. Live playfully. Zhuangzi once wrote, "Fish forget they live in water. Men forget they live in the way." Zhuangzi loved to poke fun at rigid thinkers and scholars who clung to their logic, or rulers who took themselves too seriously. Through his jokes and light-hearted tales, he reminded people that much of what we cling to, our pride, our titles, our seriousness, are illusions. So why defend them so fiercely? Why not laugh at them instead? This mockery was freedom in disguise. When you laugh, when you can see the absurdity in life, you loosen the grip of fear and pride. You realize you don't always need to win, to be right, or to control. Seriousness, Zhuangzi showed, can become a prison. Playfulness is the key that opens the door. Think about children at play. They throw themselves fully into the game, yet when it ends, they don't cling to it or grieve over losing. They simply move on, ready for the next moment. Zhuangzi invites us to live in a similar way, to engage deeply with life, but not to become trapped by it. These days, we often mistake seriousness for responsibility. We carry the weight of careers, reputations, success and failure on our shoulders, as if worry itself proves we're being responsible. But what if we allowed a little play to enter these spaces? A mistake at work doesn't have to feel like the end of the world. It could be a moment to laugh, adjust, and move forward. Even in relationships, when tensions rise, remembering that not every disagreement needs to become a clash of egos can soften the moment. And when it comes to personal growth, it doesn't have to be a grim project of fixing yourself. Growth can feel lighter, even joyful, when you give yourself permission to be imperfect. The practice is simple. Notice those moments when you're clinging too tightly to being serious, when you're busy protecting your image or stressing over outcomes. Then pause and ask yourself, what if I treated this more playfully? More often than not, the tension eases. Possibilities you couldn't see before begin to open up. Your breath feels lighter. You might even find yourself laughing at your own worries or the little absurdities of the world around you. Life will never be without its struggles, but that doesn't mean you need to carry them with a heavy face. Try meeting life as if it were a kind of play and let laughter slip in where seriousness has locked the door. Number 7. Own your journey. In our final quote from Zhuangzi for this video, he says, "A petty understanding cannot measure the wisdom of the great." Zhuangzi saw how easily people get caught in cages, titles, roles, appearances, and the endless chase for approval. And so he reminds us that real freedom isn't found in praise or recognition. It's found when we stop letting society decide who we should be. The sage is not the one celebrated by others, but the one who can move lightly, answerable only to the flow of the Tao. To explain this, he told the story of Kun, a fish so vast it transformed into Peng, a great bird that soared thousands of miles across the sky. The smaller birds laughed at Peng's journey. They couldn't understand its vastness. And in the same way, not every life can be measured by the same yardstick. What seems excessive or pointless to one may be natural to another. And so the lesson is simple. Your journey is yours, and yours alone. Some are meant to soar far, some are meant to stay close to home. Neither is greater so long as it's true. What matters is whether you're living from your own spirit and not from the expectations of others. So finally, ask yourself, if no one were watching, would I still choose this? The moment your choices begin to rise from within, instead of being dictated from outside, you start to taste real freedom. The freedom of living your own way. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist, and for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.
Oh, all in one breath, get in!